I like cameras. I don't have a huge camera collection, but I do have a number of cameras. Almost all of the film, actually all of the film cameras I have were hand-me-downs or gifted from either neighbors or relatives. And I have a DSLR here, which is just a Canon Rebel T7i. It's, I believe, kind of an entry-level DSLR, but I compared it to like the 80D, and there's some differences, but none that I felt really mattered to me and how I do photography. I actually started with film photography before doing digital photography, because neighbor gave me their Canon AE1.
I'm quarterback Joe Theismann.
I'm photographer Scott Barrow.
I rely on my quickness, my arm, and my big buddies.
I rely on my Canon AE1.
It's my turn now. Going out for a pass.
All right.
With the AE1, it's easy to shoot like a pro. The incomparable Canon AE1. So advanced, it's simple. Canon.
Which I took a bunch of photos on. This one, it's a little old, and there's some damage, not damage, but the kind of felt lining on the inside isn't great, and there were a number of artifacts that came through on the finished photos. But this is the most fun to use camera I've ever used. It looks awesome, and it's incredibly satisfying to crank the film with this crank. Like, it was great, it was awesome. It was so satisfying that it made me not want to use this Canon 35mm film camera that's a little newer. It's still, I think this is probably from the 90s.
To change the image of a rebel, change lenses. Hit it, Andre.
Image is everything.
EOS Rebel and lenses from Canon. So advanced, it's simple.
But it takes a battery. This one takes a battery too. But this one automatically advances your film, and it has a display here, a digital display with like your shutter speed and whatnot. So it's a more, like, it's an updated camera, but I like this one so much more. It's also frustrating because I have two lenses for this one, but the only lens I have for the AE1 is this 50mm lens, which is also an awesome lens. I like this lens very much. It came with the camera from my neighbor, which was very generous and sweet of them. The two lenses for this 35mm camera, this is probably the kit lens, and it's pretty cheap, but it's fine, like it works. And the other lens that was with this one was this zoom lens, which is a 70 to 210mm lens, which I discovered. I took I shot 2 rolls of film on this camera, and they both came back black. No, like there was, so I thought maybe the camera wasn't working. I think I determined that there was an issue with this lens where the shutter speed, the aperture was stuck. And so if I set the aperture to what it wasn't stuck at, the photo didn't work, I think is what happened, which is a little confusing, still doesn't make sense. The way I figured that out was I stuck this on my DSLR, and it wouldn't let me take photos unless I had it set to that specific aperture, and then it worked fine, like I could get photos with it. So that was fascinating. It also, I was initially so confused by lenses and crop factors and lens mounts. It just seemed like so complicated to me. I was like, why is this, it should be so simple. And now I kind of understand it a little more, but originally I was so lost. I could not figure out, like, this is a nice 50mm, the Nifty 50 Canon lens for the DSLR, which I used a lot and like a lot. I couldn't figure out what the difference between something like this was like $100, and then they have other 50mm lenses that are like way more expensive. And it seemed that the only difference was more a wider aperture stops. And I guess that is worth paying for, because you're paying for a lot of implementation and work and glass and mechanics. But as an intro to me, I was like, what, you have to pay $1,000 more just for like to make it a little brighter? Which is fascinating. I guess it just gives you more freedom. But that confused the heck out of me. I finally have a bit more of a grasp on it. So the lenses I have are kind of a strange collection for the cameras I have. I anticipated having some kind of like order to this video and like stepping through things, but I'm just rambling at this point, and I think that's how it's gonna be. I did the video on the Pocket Instamatic. Obviously, this one is, you know, the lens is inside it, so no special lenses there. And it takes 110 film, obviously, which I've got some Tiger film in there, which I haven't shot any of yet. So I'd like to get out and do that. A lot of responses to the last video I made were really helpful and interesting. So check out the comments if you want to learn more than what was in the video I made. This is just a disposable camera that I found that is old. It says processed before 2015. So I don't know if I'll try and shoot it or not. I'd be more inclined to if I didn't have to pay $20 to get the film back. It's actually less than $20 for disposable cameras, but the flash still, on this thing that's super old, it might still work, because when I turn the flash on, it makes a noise. I'll see if I can. And it's got 20, I've taken a couple photos on it. It's got 23 photos left. I don't know when I took those or what they were from, but kind of funny. And then I have 2 Canon Sure Shots from obviously different years.
Shooting snapshots sure is fun, except for the out-of-focus shots, and the bad flash shots, and the missed shots because you forgot to advance the film. Well, now Canon comes to the rescue with the Sure Shot. The Sure Shot, with automatic focus, auto flash, even auto film advance. Canon quality at popular prices. The Sure Shot, so advanced, of course it's Canon.
Here's the Canon Sure Shot Supreme. It's so automatic, you can't take a bad shot.
I can take a bad shot, like my backlit shot.
Nope. Sure Shot's auto flash corrects backlighting.
My too close shot.
Its autofocus gets you this close.
My no-hand shot. Shot in the dark shot.
With the Sure Shot Supreme, every shot's a sure shot.
One of these is older than the other. They seem basically identical. The older one, I saw something on it where, yeah, the older one, it looks like you can set the film sensitivity, the film speed, the ISO, whereas on this one, I don't see something that you can change that with, but it might just be automatic. So that was interesting. When I was setting all these up, I opened this one to find out that there was film in it. Oops. I don't know if I can't remember if I put that in there, because I decided to keep this one and get rid of this one, which now I think I'm going to keep both of them, even though they're like the same thing. But and also, like, if I'm going to shoot 35mm film, I'm probably going to use the other cameras, but I don't know. They're still neat to have. But the inside of this one is like pristine, which is nice. So the other thing is like the battery. They take special batteries, and you have to unscrew this to open the battery compartment, but that might affect whether or not I use them if I don't have batteries for them that are charged. I talked a little bit about this one. I should try and use this again. I should use this again just because of the damage on this one, unless I've been thinking of taking it to a camera place and having the just a little felt lining redone. I only have the one lens because the lens mount is unique. I can't remember the name of it, but it's funky. It doesn't fit. It's a kind of a screw-on. It doesn't click into place, which is also interesting. But this is a cool camera. A lot of people, I think, have these. The AE1, it's a good one. The other one I have that I've actually never used this one, but I have it, is this Olympus camera, film camera.
This is the view from Olympus. Olympus OM2, top of the line, top of a new world of single lens reflexes. Hold it, focus and fire it. State of the art, total sophistication of electronics, total simplicity of use, camera of professionals, of people who take no less than excellence, take no pictures less than great. Olympus OM2, excellence by design.
Actually, I have used it, but I've never developed the film, and I think I've lost the rolls. I've shot on it, and the reason I've used this one also is because I have two lenses for this one that came from a neighbor. I have this, what is this? It's a 28mm lens, and the other one is a really nice, or I don't know about really nice, but I think it's cool. It's a zoom lens, but it's broken, like my other zoom lens. There's a piece of glass that's loose in there. You can hear it wobbling around. I can still shoot with it because I have an adapter to be able to put it on my DSLR, which is cool because I can now use both of these lenses on there. Adapters are kind of like, but it works. And depending on like the position of the lens, it blurs part of the image. And like, I was trying to experiment with it to try and get some cool photos. They ended up just kind of being bad photos. But it's still a cool lens and it's interesting. And I have this other lens adapter. This is for EF to 35, sorry, to 3/4. Is that what it's called? Yeah, anyways, the camera I'm filming with, which is a Blackmagic Pocket 4K. And so this thing lets me put this lens, and I think that's it on that camera. I don't think I can put these on with their, I don't think I can put the two adapters together. And if I did that, I think I'd be sacrificing a number of things. You can probably tell I'm no expert on films and lenses. I didn't ever take any photography classes or anything, so I kind of just watched YouTube videos and tried to learn by doing, which has worked out for me. Like, I'm able to do what I want with photography. I'll never probably do it like professionally or anything, but I enjoy it. It's been a great hobby. I'll keep going down the lens line. I've talked about most of them. This one is a cool lens. This is a Nikon lens. You say Nikon or Nikon? See, I don't even know. I think it's Nikon. And I got an adapter for this to put on my DSLR, and it's what is it? It's like it's a 24 millimeter, that's right. So this is pretty wide, but I got this to put on my DSLR for stop motion. I wanted to get this because you can manually set the aperture, which you can't with, you can set the aperture with the other lenses, but you can't, like, on this one you can like actually spin this physical dial and change the aperture size. Whereas on these other lenses, you set the aperture to something. When you take the picture, the aperture will go to that size, but then it retracts to its resting state, which is, I think, for like long-term storage, better for the aperture. Like, I think when you're putting a lens into storage, you're supposed to set the aperture to a certain stop. So I got this for stop motion because you want to be able to set the aperture at a fixed state when doing stop motion, so you don't get, what do they call it? It's not breathing because it's not lens breathing. Aperture something, because when you take all these photos, the aperture comes to the same stop every time, but there's teeny tiny variations that add a flicker effect in stop motion, which you can see on some like professional productions. A lot of them actually use DSLRs and adapters, or just old lenses that fit fine. That's what they use. So that's why I got this, but I realized I didn't need to because I already had this lens and I just needed to get an adapter for it because I had to get an adapter for one of them anyways. So a little unnecessary, but I like using this lens a lot. It's a nicer lens. That I got this on like Nextdoor from somebody for like $90, which is a lot of money for a lens, but it's a nice lens. It's in really good condition. It's very sharp. It's very clean. So I don't regret this. It's nice to have, even though that focal distance, focal range is covered by this kit lens, which I've also been like, I don't use the kit lens that much, but it's perfectly fine. Like, I'm not able to appreciate the advances with other lenses, which, not that I have any fancy lenses, but if I did, well, maybe if I did, I'd understand more. Then I've got this was from my dad. This is a cool Polaroid camera, which I haven't used yet, and there's a thing of Polaroid photos in there. They're old, they're ancient, and I haven't tried them, so I think I'd like to try a couple out just to see if they work. I opened this thing up, which I think kills the photo that was loaded, unfortunately. So I think I just have like, I don't know, maybe 6 shots left, theoretically, with this. But this thing is so cool, it looks so fun. The other lens I have on the table is my cinema lens. When I got the Blackmagic pocket camera, I got 2 cinema lenses because they were on sale. And I go back and forth on whether I regret not just getting like a Panasonic micro 3/4, what do they call them? Variable lens with autofocus. Because a lot of times I miss the autofocus, even though if you're doing video, you shouldn't use autofocus. It's terrible. But sometimes it helps a lot if you're trying to make something by yourself. Like not having autofocus on these has given me problems before, but that's part of the learning curve that I'm working through. So this big big heavy lens is I think this is, what is this? I should know off the top of my head by now. Oh, it's a 25mm lens. But there's a big crop factor on the Blackmagic sensor. So this is effectively, I think, a 50mm lens. And the one I'm shooting with currently is like a 10mm lens. But crop factor wise, it's, is it double? I think it's double. So it's probably like a 20mm lens, which I did not understand crop factor when I first started shooting with this DSLR, because I was comparing it to this, which is obviously full frame because it's a film camera, and not understanding why it looked different. I couldn't figure it out. And it's because the crop factor on a DSLR is like 1.7, or I can't remember off the top of my head, but that's what happens. So when I get this 50mm lens, it's going to be magnified, which I didn't know was going to happen. I can still get a wide angle shot with that kit lens, and especially with this, not especially, because actually this is higher than 18 because it's a 28, but I can use this if I want to use a prime lens. I really, when I was shooting film photography, I loved using a prime lens. Like that was really fun, having to position your body, yourself, to take the photo and not relying on zoom. That was awesome. I would really like to shoot some more 35mm film, but it's expensive. A big theme of my last video was budget. I'm a very budget conscious photographer, except for when I bought the film camera. But if anyone is watching this for education purposes, not that I'm qualified to educate, difference between a cinema lens and a camera lens is that the aperture is not fixed, or sorry, it's not that it's not fixed, it's that it doesn't click, you don't go in between the stops. Like this aperture, when you adjust it, it goes click, 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 click. This one is a full range mobility for aperture. It just smoothly slides. So you could, if you wanted, change the aperture during a shot, which you'd notice the light change, but you wouldn't get the clicks. So you could change that during a shot if you wanted to, and maybe also while you're doing that, adjust the ISO and stuff to, I don't know, I'm sure people do all kinds of fun tricks with that. The focus, they don't have autofocus usually, probably never. If it's a cinema lens, it's not gonna have autofocus. It has this geared focus ring, which is meant to, you attach a follow focus to it, which you can turn, which then turns the focus ring, so you can focus more smoothly and manually. Which they also make these little rubber gear things you can strap around a photography lens to use for shooting video, and then also be able to do that focusing. But if you get a cinema lens, they do that step for you. It's a geared lens, and both of these things are geared. Although I don't think it'd be more common to use the geared part of the focus than the aperture. There's some other differences probably. And like this is a big, heavy, like I don't know how much glass is in this, but this is the most expensive lens I have. So yeah, this is my case for the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera. Hope that was interesting. This is the first time I put all the cameras I have on a table and looked at them myself. So I was like, wow, there's a lot of camera stuff here, which it's just, if you're a photographer or a collector of cameras, this is a tiny collection, but it's a pretty neat collection to me, and I look forward to actually using it more. Film-wise, I'll probably be sticking with this for a while, because this is so fun. I can take it on little trips, and hanging out with friends, I can just pull it out and go click. It's a low stakes camera, and I talked about it enough in the last video I did. But I also will be trying that out at least, because I don't have to pay to develop the photos. Unless the film's too old, in which case I'll have to buy more. And Polaroid are expensive. I completely messed up some of the information on my last video, unfortunately, in that chart I did, where I said I had a picture of the Instax and said I was comparing the Instax to the Fujifilm Instax, and then the price point I had for the photos I put for Polaroids, which you don't use in Instax. You use their Instax film, which is a lot cheaper. So shame on me for that. I tried to proof that so many times because I was like, I know I'm gonna get something wrong and it's gonna be pointed out immediately. And that's exactly what happened, despite my best efforts. But hope you enjoyed watching. I don't know how long I've been talking. These are my cameras, the camera lenses. If you have any questions, let me know, or you wanna know more about a lens, yeah.